Good morning and welcome to the Breakfast News this Monday morning. I'm Ashwarya Kapoor. Let us start the bulletin with the headlines. Nearly 80% polling registered in West Bengal in second phase of polling for 56 seats. Polling largely peaceful, says Election Commission. Campaigning picks pace for third phase. Patel Kota stir turns violent in Gujarat. Curfew imposed in Mehsana. Home Minister speaks to Chief Minister. State Bandh call to protest police action. External Affairs Minister reaches Moscow in second leg of two-nation tour after Iran. Sushma Swaraj meets Iranian President Hassan Rouhani, gets assurance that country can be a reliable partner for India's energy needs. "246 people killed and more than 2,500 injured in massive quake in Ecuador. 7.8 magnitude quake flattens buildings. Rescuers using tractors and bare hands to look for survivors." And Brazil's lower house of Congress is voting on whether to impeach President Dilma Rousseff over charges of manipulating government accounts for political gains. Well, first up, all the election-related news in our special segment, Verdict 2016. Well, the second phase of polling for 56 constituencies in West Bengal concluded on Sunday evening. The voter turnout was close to 80%. Now, barring sporadic incidents, the voting was largely peaceful. Here are all the details.
Nearly 80% voting recorded in the second phase of polls in 56 constituencies, mostly in the northern part of West Bengal.
Up till 6 p.m., the polling time was fixed in 49 number of constituencies, and we were informed that the polling went on beyond 6 p.m. in some of the polling stations, and where the tokens or slips have been issued.
The Election Commission said that polling was by and large peaceful, barring a few clashes between workers of rival political parties. The EC said the issues largely were related to EVM malfunctioning.
Polling process by and large was peaceful. Today, there were few incidents of clashes near the polling stations were reported. Immediate and prompt action was taken by the police force, which was deployed there in big number.
वोट देने से तो बहुत सारे इश्यूज तो बढ़ना चाहिए, जो जॉब के क्राइटेरिया है वो सब बढ़ना चाहिए. अगर कॉलेज खत्म करके हम जॉब की तरफ जाए तो जॉब मिल जाए, ज्यादा घूमना नहीं पड़े, ये सब तो चाहिए हम सब लोगों को ना. और वुमेन सिक्योरिटी बहुत ज्यादा जरूरी है.
In the run-up to the second phase of polling, authorities executed 15,623 non-bailable warrants to keep troublemakers under check. Similarly, over 5,000 people were kept under watch to ensure they did not influence voters.
Number of candidates in fray in these 56 constituencies are 383. 383 number of candidates were in fray, of which 350 are male candidates, and female candidates number is 33.
The voting percentage, however, did not match up to previous two elections in the 56 constituencies.
In 2011 assembly elections, the poll percentage for these 56 constituencies, final poll percentage after reconciliation, was 86.51%. In 2014, the final reconciled figure, final voter turnout in parliament election in these 56 constituencies was 82.70.
62 constituencies will go to polls in the third phase of elections to be held on April 21st. With inputs from Pranav Goswami, Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
And in related news, the BJP has accused the Chief Election Officer of West Bengal of acting in a partisan manner. They have sought his removal by the Election Commission. Now, a four-member BJP delegation comprising Union Minister Nirmala Sitharaman, Member of Parliament Bhupendra Yadav, Party National Secretary Shrikant Sharma and Om Pathak met the election commissioners on Sunday in Delhi, and they submitted a memorandum in this regard. They also made a couple of other demands. Now, the party has accused the TMC of gross and audacious violation of constitutional provisions, electoral laws and the directions of the Election Commission.
केंद्रीय चुनाव आयोग ने पिछले दिनों हमारे दिए गए ज्ञापन पर कुछ कदम उठाए हैं, लेकिन आज हमने विशेष रूप से मांग करी है कि पश्चिम बंगाल के जो राज्य के जो चुनाव आयुक्त हैं, वहां के जो राज्य सरकार के जो चुनाव आयुक्त हैं, उनको बदला जाए। हमने ये भी मांग करी है कि वीरभूमि में जो 9 विधानसभाएं हैं, उनका पुनर्निर्वाचन किया जाए। और जिस प्रकार से मीडिया में तथ्य आए हैं कि केंद्रीय चुनाव आयोग के दिशा निर्देश के बावजूद भी जो लोग हाउस अरेस्ट किए गए थे, वो लोग घूमते हुए दिखाई दिए हैं, उन सभी विषयों पर केंद्रीय चुनाव आयोग सख्ती से कार्रवाई करे।
Meanwhile, the war of words between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee is continuing during a rally in Krishnanagar on Sunday. Prime Minister Modi said that by attacking the Election Commission, the TMC has actually conceded defeat. The TMC has replied to the EC's notice through the Chief Secretary. The PM had questioned the reply by the Chief Secretary, saying that the Election Commission has addressed the notice to her as Chief of the TMC and not the Chief Minister. The TMC retorted, saying that the Prime Minister has got his facts wrong.
ममता जी और उनके दल ने पराजय स्वीकार कर लिया है और इसलिए अब वो राजनीतिक दलों से लड़ाई नहीं लड़ रही है, वे अब इलेक्शन कमीशन से लड़ाई लड़ रही है। अरे दीदी, ये इलेक्शन कमीशन एक स्वतंत्र संस्था है। पूरे विश्व में भारत के इलेक्शन कमीशन की एक प्रतिष्ठा है और जैसे खेल में हर खिलाड़ी एम्पायर का सम्मान करता है, एम्पायर का आदर करता है, चुनाव के मैदान में भी हम सभी राजनीतिक दलों का दायित्व बनता है, सभी उम्मीदवारों का दायित्व बनता है कि हम इलेक्शन कमीशन का आदर करें।
हमारा सरकार कितना तक काम कर पाया, कितना तक काम नहीं कर पाया, इसका बारे में चर्चा हो सकता है, इसमें मेरे को कोई एतराज नहीं है। लेकिन आज कौन बात पे चर्चा हो रहा है? हमारा सरकार क्या काम किया है? ये बात कहने के लिए अपोजिशन पार्टी तैयार नहीं है, सीपीएम तैयार नहीं है, कांग्रेस तैयार नहीं है, बीजेपी तैयार नहीं है। खाली ममता को गाली देना उसका एक ही काम है, इसको चुनाव कैंपेन बोला नहीं जाता है।
All right, let's move on to some other news. Big story coming in from Gujarat, where a curfew has been imposed in Mehsana city after a massive rally of the Patel community demanding reservation and release of their jail leaders turned violent on Sunday. The police fired tear gas shells and lathi-charged the agitators who allegedly engaged in stone pelting. A statewide bandh has now been called by the Patel groups to protest against the police action. In view of the security situation now has been beefed up all across the state. Curfew has been imposed in Mehsana in Gujarat after jail bharo agitation of Patel community turned violent on Sunday. The protesters were holding a massive rally demanding reservation and release of their jailed leaders. The mob damaged government properties and torched police vehicles, forcing the security forces to fire tear gas shells and use lathi charge to control the agitators. 5 policemen and 25 protesters were injured in the clashes.
जो 2 प्रॉपर्टी हैं गवर्नमेंट की, एफसीआई के गोडाउन और डिस्ट्रिक्ट इंडस्ट्री सेंटर, उनको जलाने की कोशिश की और उन्होंने कुछ पार्ट जलाया और ये सब पुलिस ने एक्शन लेके अभी कंट्रोल किया है। 144 सिटी में लागू किया है ताकि शांति रहे और साथ में इंटरनेट को भी बैन किया।
अभी भी जो वराछा विस्तार में थोड़ा डिस्टर्ब करने की जो कोशिश की गई, उसमें भी टीयर गैस शेल 4 शेल छोड़े गए हैं और 4 लोगों की अटकायत भी की गई है।
The Patels or Patidar community is a relatively affluent group of land and business owners and make up 14% of the population in Gujarat. The incident brought fears of a revival of the Patel community's quota agitation, which started last year with the demands of reservation in education and government jobs. One of their leaders, Hardik Patel, was arrested on sedition charges in October and has been behind bars since then. On Sunday, violence broke out after demonstrators were stopped on the way to a prison by the police. The demonstrators alleged that they were targeted without any provocation.
इसे एक और समाधान की सरकार बात करी है और दूसरे मुंह से ऐसे पुलिस हमारे पर लाठीचार्ज और पाटीदार समाज पर अत्याचार हो रहा है, तो इससे पाटीदार समाज बहुत दुखी है।
In the wake of reports of clashes, Home Minister Rajnath Singh called up Gujarat Chief Minister Anandiben Patel to take stock of the situation. The opposition has, however, demanded the Chief Minister's resignation over the incident.
सरकार टोटल फेल गई है गुजरात में, और वो लॉ एंड ऑर्डर में तो फेल होगी, लेकिन ये जो गुनहगार एलिमेंट्स हैं उनको सपोर्ट कर रही है।
Following the clashes, Patel groups have called for a bandh all over Gujarat on Monday in protest against police action. Mobile and internet services have been suspended in several cities in order to prevent the spread of rumours. The security has also been stepped up in all major cities. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
News from the national capital now. In the real test for the second phase of the odd-even scheme will take place today. This is the first working day since the road rationing measure was rolled out in the city on 15th of April. All offices, schools and other institutions have reopened after the extended weekend. Now, unlike the scheme's pilot phase, in which focus was more on awareness as well as voluntary compliance, now the government has cracked the whip on violators this time, with over 2,300 challans issued in the first 2 days, as against 479 during the same period in the previous phase between 1st and 15th of January. Now, under the fortnight-long scheme, private cars having odd registration numbers can apply only on odd dates and the even numbers on even dates, subject to a set of exemptions which include the VIPs, women, school-going children, medical emergencies, commercial vehicles and CNG cars. In the second phase, from 15th to 30th of April, the government added into its exemption list people driving with school children in uniform. The opposition, however, has criticized the scheme.
मुझे लगता है कि ये बात सबके सामने आनी चाहिए कि जनता का करोड़ों रुपया अपने प्रचार के लिए खाली दिल्ली में नहीं, देश के लिए खराब कर दिया गया जी।
Meanwhile, the situation in Marathwada in Maharashtra is grim. 33% of the state's villages are drought hit. Relief work carried out by the government is turning out to be too little, too late. We bring you this ground report.
14,708 villages in Maharashtra. That's nearly 33% of the state's 44,000 villages which are drought hit. Most of these are in the Marathwada region. Acute shortage of water has completely destroyed crops here. Farmers say the relief they received from the government is too little. Water supply by tankers is also erratic, forcing even the elderly and the children to bring water from far-flung regions for household use. Even this water is polluted. It's the same story in village after village adjoining Aurangabad district.
हमारे को यहाँ पानी नहीं है, पानी मांगने को गए तो लोग का पानी नहीं देते, 2-2 4-4 घंटे उनके घर को खड़ रहे थे, गालियाँ फिटकार दे के हमारे को भगाते, हमको पानी नहीं पीने को 300-400 रुपए का टैंकर पानी का लाते हम.
Shivgarh village is located on a hilly region. The residents here are nomads. Their chief occupation is cattle grazing. The drought has driven away many of them in search of water, which is being sold at exorbitant prices.
पानी के भी टैंकर जल्दी भी आते नहीं, हम पैसे तुम्हारे से निकालते भी नहीं, पैसे दियो तो भी हमको पानी जल्दी लाता नहीं. ऐसा है वो, क्या है हमारा जंगल में बैठना, खाना खाना बैठना ऐसे, भीख मांगते बैठना ऐसा.
In Sahasramuni village, there's no water to be had even at depths of 400 feet. Women and children labor hard to collect it from afar. Farming is a casualty in this season of drinking water shortage.
500 रुपए 1000 रुपये 700 रुपये बड़ा टैंक लाते हैं और इधर इनके पास सठाने के लिए बड़े बड़े ये टाकियाँ होती है, वो टाकी में पानी उतारते हैं और खुद के जेब से दिन भर भीख मांगेंगे, काम करेंगे, धंधा करेंगे और वो जो मेहनत का पैसा है वो पैसे से टैंकर मंगाते हैं और अपना जीवन बसरा करते हैं।
The government claims it is taking all possible steps to relieve the distress of the farmers, but the facts on the ground state otherwise. The situation is actually getting worse in Marathwada, and the intensity of the summer heat is only adding to the distress. Arvind Kumar Singh's report for Rajya Sabha TV.
In Breakfast News, we'll take a very short break. We'll be back with more news. Stay tuned.
Hello, I am Ishan Russell.
I'm Tracy Shilchi and you're watching News Tonight.
Together with the team of our
Dedicated professionals from across various fields.
This is Shyam Sundar,
Vishal Dahiya,
Akhilesh Suman,
Frank Pereira from Beijing, China.
Kriti Mishra for Rajya Sabha Television. We bring to you
the news that matters here on Rajya Sabha TV.
Welcome back. Now, External Affairs Minister Sushma Swaraj arrived in Russia for the second leg of her two-nation visit. Now, Sushma Swaraj will attend the annual Foreign Ministers meeting of Russia, India and China, or the RIC. On the sidelines of the RIC, Swaraj is expected to meet her Chinese counterpart, Wang Shi, during which she is likely to raise the issue of China blocking India's bid at the United Nations to ban Jaish-e-Mohammed chief Masood Azhar. She is also expected to have a bilateral meet with the Russian counterpart, Sergei Lavrov, in Moscow. Remember, in the first leg of a two-nation visit, Sushma Swaraj had a wide range of engagements with several top Iranian leaders, including President Hassan Rouhani. Rouhani assured her that Iran can be a reliable partner for India's energy needs. India has been eyeing deeper energy ties with Iran following lifting of nuclear sanction and has already lined up $20 billion as investment in oil and gas, as well as in petrochemical and fertilizer sectors in Iran. India is also keen to increase the oil imports from Iran from the current 350,000 barrels.
Iran said it would be happy to participate in the refinery sector in India. On Farzad B, both sides took note of the constructive discussions held during the recent visit to Iran of our Minister of State for Petroleum and Natural Gas. The Indian side welcomed the decision taken by the Iranian side to keep the Farzad B field outside the auction basket. In the context of the economic partnership between India and Iran, both sides discussed the progress on the Chabahar project. Both sides agreed that the commercial contract on Chabahar, as well as the modalities for extending the $150 million line of credit for Chabahar port, should be signed in the very near future.
Meanwhile, Defence Minister Manohar Parrikar on Sunday arrived in his first official visit to China for high-level talks with the top military officials to consolidate ties between the two armed forces of the two countries. Manohar Parrikar will hold talks with the top Chinese officials, including Defence Minister General Chang Wang-yan and also Vice Chairman of the Central Military Commission, General Fang Changlong, today. He's also due to call on Chinese Premier Li Keqiang. Later, he would visit China's recently integrated Western Command military headquarters, which has jurisdiction over border with India. The two countries may further discuss modalities of the 2013 Border Defence Cooperation Agreement, which has outlined various measures to address the tensions arising out of the aggressive patrolling by both sides. Moving on in the bulletin now, well, the government is planning to roll out special facilities to people staying in India on a long-term visa belonging to minority communities in neighbouring Pakistan. They will soon be allowed to buy property, open bank accounts and get PAN and Aadhaar cards. Issue of driving licence, permission to take up self-employment, dispensing with the requirement of personal appearance before the foreigner's registration officer for registration are a few other facilities that are being planned. Now, other concessions include a reduction in fees for registration as citizens of India from 15,000 to 100 rupees. Though the exact number of minority refugees from Pakistan, Bangladesh and Afghanistan living in India is not known, according to a rough official estimate, there are around 2 lakh such people, mostly Hindus and Sikhs. Remember, there are around 400 Pakistani Hindu refugee settlements in cities like Jodhpur, Jaisalmer, Jaipur, Raipur, Ahmedabad, Rajkot, Kutch, Bhopal, Indore, Mumbai, Nagpur, Pune, Delhi and Lucknow. Let's get to the big international story now. In the death toll from Ecuador's biggest earthquake in decades soared to at least 246 as rescuers using tractors and bare hands hunted desperately for survivors in shattered coastal towns. The 7.8 magnitude quake struck off the Pacific coast on Saturday. Now, neighboring countries, Colombia, Spain, Venezuela, Chile are also sending in aid to help with the worst earthquake to hit Ecuador in a decade.
The death toll in the earthquake that hit Ecuador has gone up to 246. More than 2,500 people have also been reportedly injured. The 7.8 magnitude quake struck off the Pacific coast on Saturday, collapsing houses and knocking out power. People left their homes and wandered around, some sleeping on the streets. Coastal areas nearest to the epicenter were worst affected, especially Pedernales, where some 163 aftershocks have reportedly occurred. More than 10,000 troops and 3,500 police have been deployed in the affected areas as rescue teams search desperately through rubble for survivors of the country's most powerful earthquake in decades.
Yo estaba en Atacama haciendo compra, estaba mi hija que casi la atrapa. El esposo la cogió y la sacó y luego que salieron, entonces ahí se vino la casa.
President Rafael Correa rushed home from a trip to Italy to supervise the emergency. He declared a state of emergency in 6 provinces and said the priority was finding survivors, while Vice President Jorge Glass said that the number of casualties is expected to go further. The governments of Colombia, Chile, Spain and Mexico are sending help for rescue efforts. Colombian President Juan Manuel Santos contributed 65 search and rescue experts. Speaking at the CATM military base in Bogota, Santos sent his condolences to the neighboring country. The Ecuadorian Red Cross mobilized more than 800 volunteers and staff, and medical charity Medicine Sans Frontiers said it was sending a team from Colombia.
Estamos con todo el contingente humano y con todos los recursos disponibles y coordinando también la ayuda internacional que llegará en las próximas horas.
Solidaridad con el pueblo ecuatoriano, con sus autoridades. Los colombianos los estamos acompañando en este momento de angustia, de dolor.
The Ecuadorian government has called it the worst quake in the country since 1979, where 600 people were killed and 20,000 injured. The Ecuadorian quake follows 2 large and deadly quakes that struck Japan since Thursday. Both countries are located on the seismically active ring of fire that circles the Pacific. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Meanwhile, Japan is struggling to restore services in the southwestern island of Kyushu after it was hit by 2 powerful earthquakes on Saturday. At least 11 people are still missing following the quakes, which killed 41 people and wounded hundreds others. The search for survivors is still on as rescue workers are combing through collapsed buildings amid aftershocks and the escalating risk of landslides due to rainfall overnight. Now, Saturday's 7.3 magnitude quake struck close to the city of Kumamoto, which has been hit by a 6.4 magnitude quake on Thursday night. Both the quakes were shallow, causing huge damage to roads, bridges and tunnels. Now, big landslides cut off remote mountain villages. Some 1,000 buildings have reportedly been damaged and at least 90 have been destroyed. About 2,000 people were treated for injuries and nearly 200 remain in serious condition. Now, Prime Minister Shinzo Abe announced more troops to help in the rescue efforts and that the US military would provide air transportation. The Japan Met Authority has cautioned local residents to be vigilant over possible strong aftershocks and also rain-triggered landslides in the coming days.
1回目の時はですね、わーって思うぐらいでしたけど、2回目の姿からしてもう本当に家に入るのすらなんか恐怖感があって、
もう品物自体がもう物流の方も止まってる状態で、もう品物がも
もう全部もう地震でですね、もう全部倒れてしまって、もう売れるというか、もう持ってこれるのがこれだけで、初めの方でもう全部だいぶタダでというか、もう皆様にですねお配りしたんですよ。でもあと残ってるやつがこのぐらいですよね。
News coming in from South America. Well, Brazil's lower house of Congress is voting on whether to impeach President Dilma Rousseff over charges of manipulating government accounts for political gains. Now, this even as hundreds of thousands of protesters have gathered in cities across the country. Rousseff's supporters wearing red and her opponents wearing the green and yellow of the Brazilian flag. And so far, the results don't seem to be falling in President Dilma Rousseff's favor. The yes for impeachment camp is leading by a wide margin as the vote has reached its final stage. To succeed, the motion needs a 2/3 majority, that is 342 of the 513 votes. Now, if the motion is approved, it will be sent to the upper house, the Senate, which will consider the allegations of unlawful activity against her. If the Senate finds Rousseff guilty, she can be removed from office permanently. Now, this vote comes after weeks of debates inside Brazil's Congress and also rival protests outside as well. Rousseff accuses her opponents of mounting a coup.
Um câncer muitas vezes a gente não cura, mas uma doença a gente cura. Se nós estivermos indo atrás exatamente daquilo que nós precisamos, que é melhorar a possibilidade de deixar a quantidade de corruptos na cadeia.
Se Deus quiser, vai sair hoje. Hoje tem que sair.
All right, let's get you some more international news. Here is the World Wrap. A meeting of the world's leading oil exporters to discuss capping production has ended without an agreement. After hours of talks in Qatar, the country said that the oil producers needed more time. Now, most members of the OPEC producers group plus other oil exporters, including Russia, attended the talks. They wanted a deal that would freeze the output and also help them stem the plunge in crude prices over the past 18 months. Iran, however, did not attend the meeting. Meanwhile, Iran displayed parts of its new Russian-made air defense system during its Army Day celebrations. S-300 missile tubes and radar equipment drove past a podium where Iranian President Hassan Rouhani was standing. Now, Iran insists the system is necessary to defend itself, but the US and Israel have criticized the sale. Now, the controversial contract got the go-ahead after lifting of international sanctions on Iran. The Syrian opposition's chief negotiator, Mohammad Aloush, has insisted there could be no compromise on Bashar al-Assad's ouster. He also called for renewed attacks on regime forces despite a truce. Well, the truce between Syria's government and non-jihadist rebel groups had seen violence drop since it came into effect on 27th of February. But a recent surge of fighting in the northern province of Aleppo has threatened to derail both the deal as well as peace talks. Police say a British Airways flight from Geneva hit an object believed to be a drone while on approach to London's Heathrow Airport. An investigation has been launched, though the plane landed safely and was cleared for its next flight. The Airbus A320 was carrying 132 passengers and 5 crew members. No arrests have been made so far. At least 7,000 people took to the streets of Brussels in a march against terror and hate. Now, heading the processions were some of those who were caught up in a suicide bomb attacks in Belgium's airport and metro station that killed 32 people. The attacks in Brussels were claimed by the Islamic State militant group, which also said that it was behind the gun and bomb attacks in Paris on 13th of November that killed 130 people. Well, time to wrap up this news bulletin. But before we go, well, the centuries-old Thrissur Puram festival saw thousands witnessing the parade of 30 richly caparisonized elephants and performance by over 500 percussionists among tight security. A massive display of fireworks is also among the highlights of the festival that will culminate today. We'll leave you with the visuals of all the festivities. Thanks so much for watching.